So today we'll talk about polymorphism. We will define the polymorphism. You already know what's the meaning of the polymorphism. We already know the overloading of a method, all right? And let's talk about the method signature, which is part of the what? Method overloading. So we know which method. And understand when you overload a method, is it or is it impossible? Now, how we can override? We know how to override a method. How do we override, a method in the superclass? We already experienced that thing. Okay, so let's see. First of all, what is the meaning of polymorphism? And as you said that poly means shapes, poly means many, okay, and shapes morphs. So that means what? Same thing have more than one shape. Same thing have more than one shape. But what does that mean in a programming? Okay, we know that in for example cat. We say cat, but the cat has many types and many shapes. We say dogs. Dogs has many shapes and many types. And we say cars. How many shapes for the car exist already? But they're still cars. Is that? How many shapes for the bicycle? And so on. All right. Same thing for the computer, mobile, and so on. But the same functionality is there. The same functionality is there, but they have different shapes in different way. Now, the ability of a reference variable to change behavior according to what object is holding. This is another way or another definition that if you have a variable and this variable, okay, will change the behavior, okay, based on what? On the object that holding that variable. So if you have a circle, you want to calculate the area of the circle, you use the what? You use the variable to calculate the circle of the area in this equation. But if you have a rectangle, that's different way. Okay, that's a length. Okay, but if you have another shape, okay, that's represent different way. So you change the variable, reference of the variable, or referencing the variable based on the object that contain the variable. If it's a circle, that's a different thing. If it's a rectangle, that's a different thing. All right, but the main things, the main concept about the variable is the same, only depending on which object is holding the variable. So I'm going to change the variable. Now, polymorphism in Java, okay, you can have multiple methods, okay, with the same what? With the same name. How come? You can have more than one method, like display. I can have more than one method in the same program. Display, display. How come that you can have the same method in the same program? This is called polymorphism. All right? This is called polymorphism. All right? Now, if you see something like this, we call it overriding. We call it overriding. Now, overriding, okay, overriding. If you see two methods with the same name, that means we have overriding. And when you have overriding, you accomplish what? The concept of what? Of polymorphism. So two kinds of polymorphism. We have overloading, we have overriding. Okay? So we have overloading, we have overriding. All right? Now, overloading, okay, means what? Means we're talking about the methods now, right? We need to go overriding, okay? It is the same method in the same name, one in the child class and one in the parent class. So this is overriding, right? Instead of calling the one in the parent, the super class, I will call the one in the child class. That's overriding. Overloading, two or more methods with different what? With different signature. Different signature means what? The variable number is different. The return type is different. We'll see. So this is overloading. and this is overriding. Overriding could happen only between the super class and child class. You have the same method here, same method name, D for example, D. There's no difference in the variable, they have the same number of variable. They're doing the same, maybe the same thing. With this one, we call it what? Overriding, all right? But when you have this one different signature, you have the method called D. This method take integer variable here, x, and you have the same method called D. It take nothing, all right? Or this one is an integer. This one is double. So you change the signature of the method. When you change anything in the method, not necessarily the name, the number of parameters, or the return type, and you change the signature. We call this what? Overloading. Overriding, you don't change anything. You use the same signature. You use the same signature exactly. Okay? And when we talk about overriding, we're talking about inheritance. But overloading could happen in the same class. This is the main concept of what? Of inheritance. This is the main concept of inheritance. Keep this in your mind, right? Keep this in your mind. So the superclass is person, and we have two child class, student and what? An employee. Student and employee inherit everything from where? From person. Now, this is the, when we call the methods, so we can, for example, student object equal new student, all right? And we have an employee equal new employee, all right? Now, if you say this is a person, class, variable of type person, okay? In the variable, in the memory, what you did in the memory, okay? We have the thing when we talk about the memory, that we have two sides of the memory. One is called what? We call this stack, and this one we call it what? The heap. And the stack store the variable, and this one store what? The pointer. Objects. This one store object. So here we have a variable called what? Reference. And this is the reference variable. But this reference variable is basically an object, the person. It does not point to anything yet. Okay? So there's nothing in the heap about it. It's just a variable now. Okay? It's just a variable right now. Now, student, we have stdubg. So we have stdubg. This is a variable. Let me make it clear. stdubg. This is a variable, and this variable we use the new. When you use the new, it will create an object in the memory for the student, the whole class. And this will point to what? To the student. Okay? This will point to the new object in the heap. All right? Now also we create an employee, and we call the variable emb object. emb obg. Okay? And this is a variable we use a new. When you create a new, to create an employee object here in the memory, because we use the new. Okay, this is an object. Now, here what you said is that reference is equal to what? To obg object. What does that mean? That means the reference will point to what? To the student, obg. So we have two names for the same object in the heap. This is the object here, and we have two reference for this object. We have std_obj and we have the reference. Okay, you got what does that mean? What does this do? But when you do this, that should be fine. Okay, but if there's an extra method inside the student, reference will not be able to use it. Okay, it only use the object that inherited from the person. All right, so that's correct. The reference is pointing to the student, but it can only use what? The things that inherited from the person itself. Any question about this diagram? Okay. Now, let's say that we have a getName method. Okay, this is the getName method. Where? In the class, in the person. So in person, you have getName method. GetName method where? In person. In the superclass. In the superclass, we have person. And we override this method in both classes. So in student, in the child class student, okay, we have getName method. And in the employee, we have getName method. This one print the student name. This one print the employee name. So this is called what? This is called override, because we use the same name. Okay, this is what happened here. Okay, so here they said that you have a method called getName, and we did okay. We will have the same method name, getName, same method exactly, no change. Same method name, getName. Same method exactly. This is called overriding. All right. I use the same method name in the superclass in the child. This is called overriding. I didn't change anything. The return type is the same. Okay. And the name is the same, and the number of parameter is the same. So you can see that the return type is to be string. It takes no parameter. The return type is string. It takes no parameters, and it's public. Same exact signature. Okay, the same heading. This is called override. Okay, so in the main program, when we did the same thing here, we say person refer point to the student. Now you say temp equal reference did getName. Which one it will be called? The one in the student, or the one in the person. Okay, here after this method, we say here a variable called temp equal what? Equal get, say ref dot get name. Okay, now which one it will be called? Okay, because here reference is pointing to what? The student. Okay, and the student is pointing to the student. So reference, if you say reference dot get name, ref is type of what? Type of person. But it does point to what? To the student. So when I call get, which one will be called? The one in the child or the one in the person? The reference is pointing to the student. Reference is pointing to the student. And this method is the same as this in person. It is just override. Okay, it will be override that method. So it will call the one inside what? Inside the student. We said child first, and then go to the super. Same thing if you want to say it equal to the employee job. Same thing if you say reference equal to employee. When you call reference.getName, it will call what? The one in the employee, not in the person. Okay? The one in the employee, not in the person. All right. Now we have a thing called signature. The signature, everyone has different signature. All right, and not two people having the same signature. The signature identify people from each other. Okay, so you know the signature of each one. All right, in Java, there's, we call it what? The methods are different. They cannot be the same because they have different signature. So look at this method. Look at this method. It's called sum. And it takes a variable called integer x. Okay, but what about this one? Sum, the same name, integer x, integer. Are they the same method or not? This one take one variable, and this one take how many variable? Two variable. So the signature is what? Is different. When the signature is different, we call this what? Overloading. Okay, they have the same name, but number of variable is different. Okay, but if I say like this, if I say sum integer x and sum integer y, are they different or the same? Yes. We don't look at the variable names. Don't look at the variable names. Here, don't look at the variable names. We only look at what's inside. So here we have some integer, here some integer, and here we have some integer. So this is the same method. Java will not allow you to do that. It will give you an error because they are the same method. Okay? But if one of them is different, if I say here double something, that will make them different. That will make them different. If I say sum double, that's different because this one take integer, this one take what? Double. Okay, so the signature now become what? Different. Okay, now in Java, sometimes you say, for example, public integer sum integer x. This is a method, is it? And you write code here. You have another method. Okay, you have another method. Okay, this method, for example, say public double sum, and that take integer x. It is totally different. Okay, it is totally different. All right, now this is not overloading. Not overloading. This is in Java, it's not overloading. There are two different methods. But in C++, they are overloading. Okay, but in Java, return type, changing the return type is not overloading. Remember this, huh? In Java, only in Java, okay? Returning type change is not considered overloading. It's considered different methods, totally different methods, all right? But if you change the number of parameters and the type of the parameter, that will consider it overloading. But if you change the return type, that is not overloading in Java. This is overloading. Now, we talk about overloading, we talk about overriding. When we talk about overriding, we are using the same method name, but we are not changing the signature. Overloading, overriding, same signature. Remember this. But overloading, change the signature. Change what? Signature. Remember this. This is the main difference between them. You can read the details. Okay, overloading deal with multiple methods, okay, in the same class, okay, with the same name but different what? Different signature. Now overloading, same class, same class. Overriding, what? Super and child class. They are not in the same class. They are not in the same class. Okay? Overloading allow you to define similar operation in the same way for different data. Same way for different data. So you can add two integer number, you can add two double number. If you say sum in overloading, if I say sum, I can let you sum integer and integer. And I can also make it as sum integer double. And I can make it as sum double integer. So I allow you to enter what? Any type of variable, all right? But the same function. The calculation is different, maybe, or the same, okay? But the benefit of overloading is that you don't have to remember more than one function. So you don't have to put like add integer, add double and integer. You just put one method, okay? But you try to use overloading. Overriding, the same operation, but in different way. Now, overloading is different data. Depends on what? Data. Overriding depends on the object because they are in different classes. They are in different classes. They both have different operation. Either overloading or overriding. They both have different operation. But in overloading, we have different data, like integer and in double, integer and integer. We care about the data. But in overriding, no, we care about the object. Okay? You are on the super class, or you are what? In the child class. You print different things. Okay, this is called overriding. So these are the main three differences between them. Remember them. Overloading is change signature, same class, and different data. But overriding, same signature, different class, super class and child class, and different objects. Now, the constructor is a method. Can do only overloading. Because we are in the same class. If you are in the same class, you're using overloading. Remember this. But we are trying to put more than one constructor for the same class, so we're still in the same class. So in this case, we're not using overriding. We're using what? Using overloading, because we are still in the same class. So we can change the signature for the constructor. We can have a default constructor, default one. We can have a full constructor. We already generate this in any for each class we create. We can have full constructor. Now, how many constructor we can have? Two. We can have more. We can change the order of the variable. We can have here, for example, two variables. We can have another constructor with three variables, another constructor with something like that. Okay? And we'll see an example right now. Okay, so for example, let's overloading the constructor. Okay, a class may have unlimited number of constructor, not just one, unlimited number of possible constructor. So you can override the constructor by what? Change the parameter. How many number of parameter? 0 parameter, or 1, or 2, or 3, or 4. You can change the type of the parameter if you want. You can change the type, data type inside here, because we're talking about the data when we do overloading. And you can show what? The order of the parameter. So instead of having integer and double, you can change it to double and integer then. This is overloading. So this is how we do the overloading for the constructors. Okay, I'll give you an example here. This is a class called student. Okay, now the first constructor, take what? I'll create the first one. First one is public. It's not there already. Public student. Take nothing and do nothing. This is one. 0 parameter. 0 parameter. Here, another one. But this one contains what? 1 parameter. 1 parameter. Okay. What about this one? How many parameter? 2 parameter. What about this constructor? 2 parameter. But this one and this one are the same. Are they or not? What's the difference between this one and this one? This one has 2 parameter. This one has 2 parameter. Okay? But the difference is what? This is the first parameter is the same. String name, same. But the second parameter is what? It's different. This is string, and this is what? Double. So the difference is here. String and double. Yes, they have 2 parameter, but they are different types in the second parameter. First parameter, the same string. Don't look at the name. Don't look at the variable name. Look at the type. So you can call them, when you call them, you can call student. I'm going to make another one here. Student S1 equal new student without any variable. This is one. You can call it with just one name. You can call it with two names, name and GPA. You can call it with name and city. This is the benefit of having what? Of having multiple constructor.